Yo, what up, street dogs? There, Kim. All right, so the thought. This thought is about energy suicide. So this is kind of like a totally unrelated thing that I've been interested in. Is like in studying human physiology, and the basic gist is, what is the quote-unquote happiest life that one can live? And this is my general thought. My general thought is, perhaps the happiest life is the life with the most physiological power. So physiological meaning, pertaining to your body. And in my last video I talked about why I think the body is the soul. It's one and the same. So the basic gist is, energy, physiological human energy, is the supreme form of energy. And to commit energy suicide is probably one of the most unwise things we could do. So what is energy suicide? So for the most part, energy suicide is anything that you do which kind of gets rid of your own human physiological energy. So this is why I personally don't, smoke weed or, do downer drugs or shrooms or whatever, is that to me it's energy suicide. So it's from a physiological perspective, it's kind of a bad decision for me because I personally like stimulants. I like to be maximally awake, active, and woke. And it's so funny too because people talking about like, oh, you want to be so woke, right? But fucking all these people who's trying to be woke, they all smoke weed and, stuff like that. And it's like, yo, when you're smoking weed and drinking alcohol and stuff, you're becoming unwoke. You're like quite literally sedating yourself. So I don't think there's anything moralistically wrong with, alcohol, weed, and other depressants. But I think just the biggest downside is it's energy suicide. So from a physiological perspective, I think alcohol and marijuana is bad because it generally sedates people. So, but it's tricky though. It's like, if you're amputating my arm, yeah, dude, give me all the fucking drugs in the world. But if you consider yourself a physiologically healthy human and you want to maximize yourself and your things, then perhaps it's a bad idea for you to commit energy suicide. So this is also a random thought. So I've been philosophizing a little bit about porn lately, and it's actually very interesting. So I did some research, and the etymology of the word porn essentially means female prostitute, and it comes from a notion of like people from a brothel. And what is porn? Why is porn considered bad and stuff like that? And also, is it quote bad to watch porn if one doesn't masturbate and one doesn't finish? And this is just kind of like unrelated to these totally hilarious things I was reading, like according to Chinese medicine, there's a notion that one drop of semen is worth like 10 pints of blood or something like that. And I read that, I was like, whoa, that's like an interesting thought. And then I randomly thought about the notion that boxers, they don't have sex before a big fight and they don't come, or even some of the more hardcore ones, when they're training, they don't engage in any sort of sexual activity. And the basic notion is the life force of a man, a lot of it is inside your spunk. So if you get rid of your spunk, you jerk off, you ejaculate, whatever, you actually lose a lot of your physiological energy. So I was on Wikipedia randomly, and apparently, yeah, the notion is if you jack off, you come, whatever, that's energy suicide. Because, and I was also doing some Wikipedia on like semen or sperm or whatever. There's actually a lot of protein and all these other chemicals in it and stuff like that. And certainly that's the seed of life. Like this is crazy, within your fucking sperm, your jizz or whatever, right? You could give birth to another human being, which is fucking insane to me, right? So every time you just kind of like, rub one out and just kind of shoot off into wherever, it's like, these are all the potential kids you could be having. Now, once again, I don't think jerking off is a bad thing. Even Diogenes, the cynic philosopher, he'd be rubbing some out in public with zero shame. So I don't think there should be any shame to masturbating or jerking off or porn or whatever. But once again, my personal interesting is how it physiologically affects us. So for me, ooh, this is kind of nice. So for me, I don't want to commit energy suicide. I don't want to lose my energies. And this is even another thought too, right? Is that like, let's say you want to go to the gym and do some really 1 rep max deadlift, squats, bench press, whatever. Would you jerk off before you finish before going to the gym? No, that's like a very dumb idea, because you're not going to be as strong, because certainly after you come or whatever, all these bodily hormones which cause you to fall asleep kind of come into play and relaxes you. And so certainly, and there's the ongoing joke that like, after men have sex and they come, they just fall asleep to keep their wives while a lot of their wives are still awake. Not always the case, but assuming, let's say your partner doesn't also orgasm or whatever. So the downside is, anytime you have sex and you come, you finish, you ejaculate, whatever you jizz, then your body becomes weaker. It becomes less vigorous, less active, less whatever. So that's why you don't be like American Beauty. Don't rub one out in the morning, then you're not gonna have energy for the rest of the day. So that's why, like, and even this is just kind of a life experiment I've been doing, is that like I've been not rubbing none out for the last like maybe 2 weeks or so. And actually, as a consequence, I actually feel more vigorous, more energetic, more awake, more alive and stuff like that. And what's personally been good for me is, it's automatic. It's not a real man's car. So, and what's been the interesting thing for me is, I'm actually a lot more vigorous, awake, and more sharp and more keen to like a little bit of everything. And so I'm starting to even think like, like, I mean, obviously I can't speak for all guys, but assuming you're a guy and you're rubbing one out every night before you sleep, or once a day, or for the vigorous twice a day, then certainly you're gonna have less energy to do whatever you want to do and less motivation, because I mean, certainly a lot of our human, the desire is to find an optimal mate, perform coitus with her, and then birth a child. That seems like that's the purpose of sex and sexual desire and stuff like that. So once you've ejaculated your jizz or whatever, there's no longer a motivation. There's no longer a motive to go out and go, seeking or hunting a potential mate or whatever it may be. So it seems that like for us guys, be very careful and sparing in terms of how you spill your spunk. And know that, who knows, maybe study more like Asian medicines and stuff like that, where they talk about the qi being the guys, like this actually the random thing is like, even I think the emperor of China, or one of the emperors of Korea, or one of the Asian emperors is like, and I think this is totally false obviously, but the basic notion was the key to immortality was to have sex with as many virgins as possible, young virgins as possible, but not coming, because apparently like if you think about the whole yin and yang philosophy, women have unlimited yin, but men only have limited yang, or something like that. So the downside was, if you're always just kind of like doing your thing with women, apparently the king would actually abstain from coming, which is totally hilarious to me. Is that like the point was to have as much sex as possible without actually coming. So and even if I think about like ancient mythology, Hercules, apparently he was able to sleep with one of these king's 100 daughters and like in one shot impregnated 100 of them in a row. So yeah, it seems like our strength, our fertility, our manhood, our sperm, our jizz, whatever, is all interconnected. So when in doubt, don't perform energy suicide.